Why are these horses not fit in January? You're constantly going on, oh, there's loads to work on. Why is there loads to work on at this stage of the season?
That was the exact excuse that Willie Mullins gave about Energumene, saying he wasn't ready and he wanted to see the white fences.
No, with the white fence, I couldn't give, he just ran a flat race.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV. Thank you very much for all the support on episode 1, the first video of these 4 day-by-day Cheltenham previews. We're on to the Wednesday. If you do enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do get your comments down below. What are you backing on Wednesday in each race? We want to hear it. We heard from the people in their Tuesday video, and we want to hear them for the Wednesday. But we're going into the Wednesday. Hopefully we'll back 3 or 4 winners on the Tuesday, and the pressure's off. If you haven't had a good Tuesday, is Wednesday vital?
Wednesday is often vital. Wednesday's a tough day usually, though. A couple of tricky races in there. The Coral Cup Grand Annual, tough races. Some people like the cross country, some people don't. The Champion Bumper this year looks awfully open. So I look at Wednesday this year, and it honestly could be a terrible day for me. It could be a really terrible day. On the flip side, Josh, it actually could be the best day of my life if some things come together on day 2. It has the shape with the horses running that it could be legendary. It could be legendary, and we'll get onto those horses slightly later on. But we've got 7 races to preview: the Ballymore, the Brand Advisory, the Coral Cup, the Champion Chase, the Cross Country, the Grand Annual, and the Champion Bumper. And we will start with the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, and a horse that you've been banging the drum about, Goodland for the good people. Mikey O'Sullivan will take the ride, a friend of the podcast now. It's great to have him involved with some of the videos. What do you think? I think he's got a huge chance. There's no getting away from it. You know, Barry Connell's been very confident about this horse all the way through, and I know he unseated at the first at Fairyhouse on his first start over hurdles, but other than that, he's been absolutely foot perfect. He was brilliant at Christmas time in a good standard maiden hurdle. He won the Nathaniel Lacey pretty snug, and you know, I just think he goes into this as a rock-solid horse. It's a tough race. It's a good race, the Ballymore. I think it's probably a better race than the Supreme. There's horses in there that worry me. Impere Pass is top of that list, and I'd be lying to say I probably would have a saver on Impere Pass, personally speaking. I've no issues backing 2 in a race if I think, you know, that there's still decent prices. Goodland 5-1, Impere Pass 3-1, or in and around. I think that's fair. I'd like to take on the Paul Nicholls horse, Hermes Allen. He's done everything right so far, but you know, people are clutching onto this shallow hurdle form. Oh, the horse beaten 5th, you know, beaten 52 lengths has won a novice around Hereford. You know, it doesn't really mean anything to me.
I know. The one thing I would say about Hermes Allen, and I'm obviously a Paul Nicholls fanboy, and I'm not going to back him here. I do think he's a different mould to the horses, the really good horses that have been beaten in this race for Paul Nicholls, the likes of Denman, the likes of Brave Man's Game, who couldn't quite do it. They went on to be, obviously, incredible chasers. This lad isn't that. He's a lot shorter, he's stockier, he's built very different, and he's made for hurdling. I think he's quite forward as well. Like, because of his size, it means that he's nimble over his hurdles. I just think he's a different type of horse, probably has more speed as well.
Well, maybe so, and I do agree with that. Like, he's a very different type of horse to what Brave Man's Game was 2 years ago. But at the same stage, an awful lot of people are going on about how good the shallow hurdle form is. Is it actually that good? You wear as well? She wears well. You wear as well. Yeah. Jamie Snowden's horse was in second. She's won a listed mare's novice around Sandown. Good on her. She's going to run in the mare's novice. I'd give her 5-1 to be in the first 10 of the mare's novice. She was in second. Adalco Bahui was in third. He's still running around Doncaster trying to catch up to my man Maximilian. Like, is the form actually that good? Just because a few horses that were absolutely tailed off have won tin pot novice races since, we're all meant to go, hey, look at this form.
Yeah, I agree. I think the shallow hurdle, some people think it's very good, some people don't. Obviously, his previous start before that was at a course and distance at Cheltenham in the Ballymore trial, and he was very good. But look, he's beaten, like you say, he's beaten Music Drive 8 or 9 lengths. That's not going to be good enough to be winning this. And I always thought with him, what I don't like is the fact that he started at Stratford. Now, that might seem like I'm a bit of a snob, but Stratford's my local course. I absolutely love the place to bits. But Ballymore winners don't tend to start at a track like that in a race that they did. They didn't think he was any good at all. I quite like that, maybe. But I don't. I wanted Paul Nicholls to tell me in the summer that this is a really good horse. They spent loads of money on it, and he was completely opposite. They wondered why Aidan Murphy had bought him. He was a small, ratty thing in comparison to the rest of Paul Nicholls' typical 3 mile big lovely chasers, and he was scratching his head. And look, it's turned out to be brilliant, and I do think he could win the race. I'm not saying that, but I just won't back him for those couple of reasons. I like him Peri Pass. I had a good chat with Ruby Walsh in the studios a good couple of days ago, and I was really warm to the horse. I've been warm for him for a little while. I'd liked him to run the Supreme. I think he'd have won the Supreme, but he's running here. I think they have no problem with him staying, and the vibe that I got is that this horse is just going to win.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair enough. It wouldn't surprise me if he did win. That's why he's my major concern in the race to Goodland. I'd be awfully surprised. I know some people won't want to back horses 5 to 1 each way, but I just cannot see a world where Goodland is out of the first 3. I think he's just absolutely bomb-proof in terms of running his race. Yeah,
very, very solid indeed. The following race is the Brown Advisory Novices Chase. And this is the big moment. I'm going to give it the curse, my nap curse of the festival. Now, look, in previous years, my nap has been Column of Fire, came down. My nap has been Entucus, didn't get up, was beaten very, very close. Last year, Buddy Rich and the Grand Angel, all kind of fanciful prices, around the 10 to 1 mark, ever so slightly bigger when I put them up. This time, I'm not taking that risk. I want one horse that potentially is favourite that I think is just going to win. And for me, that's Jerry Colombe. He's 7 to 4. He shouldn't have been doing anything that he has been doing over 2.5 miles. He won at Limerick over 2.3. He went at Sandown on good ground over 2.4. I like the fact that he's got the experience of travelling. He beat a good horse that day in Balco Coastal on conditions that he would have preferred. He now goes up in trip. The rain could come, which I think enhances it. I just think the race is weak. I would take on the Real Whacker. I don't think he's any good. That's my personal opinion. I know plenty of people do like him. I couldn't have him at all. I think they'd be absolutely ridiculous to be running in a Gold Cup with him. So Gerhard obviously has the ability, but he's ran once over fences. He's ran once this season in a 2 mile beginner's chase. He's now going to be running a good clip, potentially on soft ground over 3 miles at Cheltenham. It's a completely different ballgame, and he didn't jump particularly well on his chasing debut, and I would have wanted to see that. So you can pick holes in a lot of them. Time Hill, yes, on hurdles form, you could maybe give him a shout, but he won the weakest Quarto Star I think I've ever seen since I've been watching it, and Sham Blue won the race a good few years ago, and he's not taken to fences. I could see him ballooning. I could see him doing all sorts, playing up, not jumping very well, and that's his chance gone. So for me, the really solid one is Jerry Colombe. He's 7 to 4. I think he'll go off 5 to 4, potentially shorter, and I think he'll win.
Yeah, it's a very strong case you make. Obviously, it being your nap, we can expect Jerry to unfortunately end up on the deck or somehow
or
stone bruise in the morning or be chinned on the line. Those are the 3 options. I've come to the same conclusion. I'm not probably quite as strong as you on the horse in terms of I wouldn't be making him my nap of the week, but at the same stage, I've come down to the conclusion that this horse just wins, really. It's more through a lack of competition for me, because I think, and I'm pretty snippy about Gallard de Menil as a horse. I'm not a massive fan of him, but I think Gallard de Menil would come second in this race if he ran in it. I think he'd beat the rest of them. It's not a great indictment on the rest of them, to be honest. But I echo exactly what you've said about the rest of the horses. Jerry Colombe, 7 to 4. He's done it all. A little bit of juice on the ground would go a fair way to, I think, just enhancing his claims. I don't think he'd be beaten because of ground, but I think if it was soft, he'd be a near-on absolute cert. I don't know. Obviously, we're just looking at the Brown Advisory today. Where do you stand with him in the long term, though? Because it doesn't strike me as next year's Gold Cup winner. Maybe what he'll do in the Brown Advisory might sway that.
Possibly. I do think he needs to step up to be a Gold Cup contender. I'm not sure he's going to be a horse that could be winning 3 mile grade 1s against Galopin Des Champs at Leopardstown, but maybe the extended 3-2 at Cheltenham might see him get closer. He might be kind of a Don Polly and struggles. I think he's probably slightly classy in Don Polly, but he might be one of those that isn't quite quick enough to win a Gold Cup, but is very classy on his day. honestly, 7-4, I absolutely love him. And those that are going to be in the Feathered Fish on Tuesday night, don't bother asking me what horse I fancy for the following day. It's just going to be Jerry Cologne.
Yeah, I'd go in there with earplugs on, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just going to be Jerry Cologne. I'll chew your ear off about him all night. The Coral Cup comes up next, and I'm just going to give you the floor here, because there's one horse and one horse only that the people want to hear about. And who is it? It's
HMS Collect here, also known as HMSC horse.
HMS Collect is so good.
For those that are looking on the Racing Post app, don't know why it hasn't been edited just yet, but look, I think he's got a huge chance in this race. I think he's Paul Dolan's best chance of a winner all week. He's bringing over a squad of 4, I believe. Look, he's a very good horse. He was 4th in the Boodles last year. A good Boodles at that. Brazil, probably a bit above your average Boodles horse. Gaelic Warrior, certainly above your average Boodles horse. And Bellex 1 kind of just mugged him for 3rd. He's gone off to Australia. He could have been a decent enough dual purpose horse for Paul Nicholls.
They love going up in trip, those juveniles, don't they?
They do, yeah. And he's also obviously been gelded since.
What was the quote?
Yeah, he's thrived since losing his balls, was the text I got from Davy Boland, a great man. Racing's Inside Track in Ireland, does fantastic video stuff with an awful lot of point-to-point work in Ireland. And he texted me this relatively out of the blue. I found it hilarious, but we all backed it for at Navan then as a result, where he was meant to improve for the run. He wasn't meant to be revved up completely to the minute for that. He seemed to really relish the step up in trip. Obviously, being gelded has helped his jumping, which was probably his Achilles heel last year. I don't think 143 is the ceiling of this horse's ability one bit. He's 8-1. I think actually you'd probably be able to get 10 or 11-1 on the day, so I wouldn't be maybe steaming in at 8-1. But at the same stage, I think he's got a massive, massive chance. He looks, to me, when you look through that race, an improving horse, still young, still progressive, and also probably ahead of his mark. And those are all things I like to tick off when you're looking at a handicap bird.
Now, the Coral Cup is an impossible handicap, but I'm going to side with you here as well. HMSC horse at 8-1 each way. You're very, very convincing, and what he's done since having the gelding operation and his win the other day, I think you were saying that he may not have been 100% as well, maybe left a little bit of work to do, so improvement could come.
Hopefully.
Which would give him a massive, massive chance. Now we move on to the Queen Mother Champion Chase, the feature on the Wednesday. And I've got a feeling I need to get my shield up here, because you're a big fan of Energumene and I'm a big fan of Edwardstone. And who's going to win the race?
Well, very hard to know. Probably knowing our luck, it will be something else.
Editor de Gite.
Editor de Gite or Gentleman de May.
Are we overlooking Editor de Gite? Because I know neither of us fancy him, but you beat both of them the last time.
Yeah, I suppose we are a little bit. You'd like a little bit more juice in the price, I think, to really be considering them. I know that sounds stupid again for a horse that has beaten them, but at the same stage, the two of them, Energumene and Edwardstone, they almost got in each other's way looking after each other. They were almost trying to man-mark each other and let Editor de Gite just get on with it. The fact that Gentleman de Me is in the race, even a Grenadine who usually likes to be forward on the pace, it just means that he won't get a freebie out in front. And I think that will really kill his chances pretty quickly. I think he will set it up. What I see happening is that you'll have 2 or 3 in the front line there. Paul Townend will be prominent, maybe on the inside, to try and negate that little shift to his right that he sometimes can do. And he'll be in kind of box A, and Edwardstone will be right behind him on the rail in box B, and Tom Cannon will be trying to play cat and mouse with him. Whether he's good enough to do it, maybe he is. It's a little bit like the El Fabiolo John Bond debate. I'm 60-40 in Energumene's category. I just think he's the champion chase winner. Edwardstone is not the champion chase winner. He may well be this time next week, but Energumene has the form in the book from last year. I know that champion chase fell apart.
Talk to me about that champion chase.
Well, it fell apart, but he still won it by 10 lengths on the Houdini.
Beating Funambule Savola.
10 lengths on the Scooby.
Chacun Poissoir fell. Shishkin didn't turn up. It was a dreadful champion chase.
Do I need to repeat? 10 lengths in a champion chase. Has Edwardstone won a champion chase by 10 lengths? Any champion chase, for that matter, by 10 lengths?
He's never ran in a champion chase.
He hasn't. He hasn't. You're just deflecting the question because you know you don't have the answers. Instead, Edwardstone, he's a progressive horse. He could well win the champion chase. I get that. But Energumene has the solid form from last year.
Do you think Energumene's got over seeing the white fences now? Do you think he needed that trip?
Well, maybe so. Maybe that was it. I don't know. Do you think Edwardstone would have gotten within a half length of Shishkin at his absolute best in last year's Clarence House at Ascot?
No, but I don't think that Energumen's going to turn up.
Well, I do think that Energumen will turn up.
Well, fair enough. I think what Edwardstone did the last day, despite being beaten, was very impressive. I think Tom Cannon left a bit too much to do. He did incredibly well to get where he was, jumping the last. He did go in front. He didn't quite get up the hill. I think Alan King left a bit of work to do with him because he fell at Kempton the last day. He wanted a confidence-boosting ride. I think that's what they got. I think they'd have been happy to have finished third behind both horses and beaten 3 or 4 lengths. What ended up happening is he found himself in a position to win, and I just don't think he was fit enough to go through with it. That won't be the case here. I think he's a great bet, 15
but this is the exact same as Jambon. Like, and I do understand. No, I understand your point. I understand the case. But why are these horses not fit in January? You're constantly going on. Oh, there's loads to work on. Why is there loads to work on at this stage of the season?
That was the exact excuse that Willie Mullins gave about Energumen, saying he wasn't ready and he wanted to see the white fences.
No, with the white fence, I couldn't give. He just ran a flat race. I don't believe that. I don't believe he wasn't ready, and I don't believe that the white fences had absolutely anything to do with it. I just think he ran a poor enough race. He made a mistake at the last, a bad mistake at that. He'd have been beaten 3 lengths otherwise, and for a horse that's ran 10 times over fences, it's the first time he's ran a bad race, and he's still only been beaten 5 lengths.
Now, Energumen is favourite. Edwardstone is just second favourite. Would you be happy on camera to do a 20 quid match bet?
Of course I would, yeah.
There we go. 20 quid match bet. I am team Edwardstone. You are team Energumen. And we will move on then to the cross country.
Do we give 20 quid each to the Injured Jockeys Fund if both get beat?
Yeah, we'll do that. There we go. So racing's the winner. Everyone will be
Racing is the winner.
Everyone will be hoping that Editor Digit wins now. We'll move on then quickly to the cross-country chase. Delta Work in there, 11-8 last year's winner. He beat Tiger Roll. It was a horrible day. Everyone wanted Tiger to win, and Jack Kennedy came and spoiled the party. This time, everyone wants Delta Work to win, and no one wants Galvin to spoil the party. But he could.
He could. I don't think he will.
No. Why not?
I just think Delta Work has had a good season. He wouldn't punch us down when he wouldn't have been ready because it was back in October, you know, when horses aren't meant to be ready. Then he was third last day off a mammoth weight. I thought that was a really, really good run. Ran even quite a nice little race in the Boyne Hurdle, similar a la Tiger Roll a couple of years ago. And is he not just the best horse in this race? Delta Work and Galvin actually on their absolute peak Grade 1 efforts wouldn't be that far apart, but Delta Work has the experience. I have to side with that.
From one Gordon Elliott horse to another, I quite like Andy Dufresne in the Grand Annual at 9-1. I will be backing him each way. I think he'll go off a good bit shorter. He was last year's favourite. He's owned by JP McManus. 2 trends that are very popular with the Grand Annual winners, and this has just been the plan all season. He was a very good second to Captain Guinness at the start of the season, and then finishing a Grade 1, beaten 80 lengths. He finished down the field again in another race, and they were hoping for his mark to be dropped. He's now off 155, the same mark he was in the race last year. Last year, if you remember, the race was deplorable ground, and he still got within 3 lengths of a runaway winner in Global Citizen. I think that he's a very good horse and not a graded animal, and this has just been the target all year, and I trust Gordon Elliott to get it right. So 9-1 for me. Andy Dufresne, he'd be quite a strong one.
Yeah, no, I can see the angle behind Andy Dufresne, a horse that I'll back for the race. I think he's got a very good chance. Another horse that I've liked the look of, I backed back in October time, was Dad's Lad. He obviously won that race where he beat Efrinock Fizz with Editor Digit back in 4th. He's got obviously scaled height since then. He then disappointed in the Greatwood Hurdle. He'd been given time to freshen up. In an ideal world, you'd get nicer ground. I think he wants a bit nicer ground, but he'll be held up off the pace. You know, in kind of mid-division, they usually go off helter-skelter in the Grand Annual, so sometimes it can suit a closer. He's 14-1 at the moment. I'd throw him in with Andy Dufresne. I'm just very surprised. You've obviously put up Jerry Colomb as your nap. Surely your nap is Gordon Elliott to train 20-plus winners at 50-1 because he might as well do at this stage.
I'm hoping so. I've not backed one of his horses on day 1, but I'm hoping he has a very good day 2, and Jerry wins, Delta Work wins, Andy Dufresne wins, and he'll have 3 on the Wednesday.
Very good, yeah.
So yeah, no, maybe not 25 winners, but maybe, 6, 5 or 6.
Yeah,
not on one day across the festival.
Well, maybe so. Yeah, no, I'm just surprised, but we'll get to Thursday and Friday in the next few videos. You'll put up another 12, so we'll get there eventually.
Okay, now let's move on to the final race on the Wednesday, the Champion Bumper, the race that we all want to see a superstar emerge from, and the superstar you're going to back is going to be
Bruno. Look, I've just come round to him. I think it's a very open champion bumper. If I'm being honest, at the moment, I don't think there is a superstar in there.
Okay.
There could be, obviously. An awful lot of these horses are going in, having won 1 or 2 races. It's For Me looked impressive at Navan. The runner-up Sutton Hills let the form down, though. The Dream to Share was good at the Dublin Racing Festival. Seems to be he's obviously a flatbred horse. He's a quick horse. Maybe I would like the second in that factor file to flip that form over, because I think he's a good chance, and he's a strong stayer as well. He'd be well on my radar to have a few each way quid on. But Encanto Bruno, his reputation is near on enhanced from sitting in his box all year. He obviously won the October bumper at Cheltenham, putting in what you've done with a few other horses, like the fact that he's travelled over, he's taken in Cheltenham, and he's won at the track. He won very, very impressively. The second strong leader is unbeaten since then, unbeaten over hurdles. A very good horse in his own right. For big man Ollie Murphy, we've got a cap here. We're all Ollie Murphy here on this podcast. But he's a very good horse and could well run into the frame in the Supreme. And Encanto Bruno's just been forgotten about. People will look at me and say, well, John McConnell can't win the champion bumper. Maybe that is true. But this horse, if trained by the Gordon Elliott's, Willie Mullins of the world, I don't think you'd be getting 16 to 1 about him. I think you'd get 8, 9 to 1 about him. And as a result, I'm just going to take away the trainer element. Just look at the horse in its actuality and go, this horse has got a very good chance.
No, I'd agree with that. I do think that if he's with a more fashionable trainer, he would be a shorter price. I agree with the sentiment regarding Factor File. I think he'll reverse the form with the Dream to Share. He's 12 to 1. I think that's a good price each way, and I just think he's going to continue to shorten. He'll appreciate cutting the ground if it comes, which is likely, and he'll appreciate to an end-to-end gallop. So for me, it'd be Factor File at 12 to 1. Naps.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a big day for the good people. Let's hope. Because I've got 3. They're all from, I'm nothing if not predictable when it comes down to these things. Goodland in the Ballymore. HMS Collect in the Coral Cup. Bruno in the bumper.
And my 2 naps will be Impere Pass in the Ballymore and Jerry Colombe in the Brown Advisory. So the day could be completely over by
You'll be home before Seahorse runs.
I will. The day could be ruined by the time the Coral Cup comes around, and I won't be back in the winner of that anyway, because I never do. But if you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and lucky for you, Andrew is going to send us out to the different Bruno chant.
Bruno. It's the famous Encanto Bruno. He stays on up the straight, makes McConnell look great. He's the famous Encanto Bruno.